Hello and welcome to American TimeVault. Today, we're diving deep into a conflict that reshaped the modern Middle East and redefined warfare for a new era, the 1990-91 Gulf War. From a swift invasion to a lightning-fast liberation, this was a war of high stakes, groundbreaking technology, and global consequences. So, buckle up as we rewind the clock to the events that captured the world's attention. Our story begins on August 2nd, 1990. In the early morning hours, Iraqi forces under the command of Saddam Hussein stormed across the border into their small, oil-rich neighbor, Kuwait. The invasion was swift and brutal. Within hours, Kuwait City had fallen, and the Kuwaiti royal family had fled to Saudi Arabia. Saddam declared Kuwait the 19th province of Iraq, effectively erasing it from the map. But why did this happen? Well, the reasons were complex. Iraq was heavily in debt after its long and costly war with Iran in the 1980s. Saddam accused Kuwait of overproducing oil, which drove down prices and hurt Iraq's economy. He also claimed Kuwait was slant drilling into Iraqi oil fields. Adding to that, he revived old territorial claims, arguing that Kuwait was historically part of Iraq. Whatever the true mix of motives, the world was stunned. This act of aggression against a sovereign nation was a clear violation of international law. The international community responded with almost unanimous condemnation. The United Nations Security Council passed Resolution 660, demanding Iraq's immediate and unconditional withdrawal. When Saddam refused to comply, a series of increasingly tough economic sanctions were imposed. But sanctions alone weren't stopping him. Iraq began massing troops on the border with Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil producer. This move sent alarm bells ringing across the globe. If Saddam controlled both Kuwaiti and Saudi oil, he would have a stranglehold on a significant portion of the world's energy supply. This was a red line for the United States and its allies. President George H.W. Bush famously declared, "This will not stand." What followed was one of the most impressive diplomatic and military buildups in history. Codenamed Operation Desert Shield, a massive multinational coalition was assembled. Over 30 countries, including the United Kingdom, France, Egypt, and Saudi Arabia, joined forces with the United States. It was a remarkable show of global unity against aggression. For the next 5 months, the world held its breath. Diplomacy was given every chance. The UN set a deadline, January 15th, 1991. If Iraqi forces were not out of Kuwait by then, the coalition was authorized to use all necessary means to liberate Italiano. While diplomats talked, hundreds of thousands of coalition troops, along with an armada of ships and a fleet of advanced aircraft, poured into the region. The desert of Saudi Arabia was transformed into a massive military staging ground. It was a clear and powerful message to Saddam: get out or face the consequences. Saddam Hussein, however, remained defiant. He predicted the mother of all battles and believed his battle-hardened army, the fourth largest in the world at the time, could withstand a coalition attack. He expected a bloody ground war, similar to the Iran-Iraq War, would cause heavy casualties and fracture the coalition's resolve. He had dug his forces into defensive positions in Kuwait and southern Iraq, creating what he believed was an impenetrable line of fortifications. As the January 15th deadline came and went, the world braced for impact. The time for talk was over. In the early morning of January 17th, 1991, Operation Desert Shield became Operation Desert Storm. The air war began, and it was unlike anything the world had ever seen. This was the first major conflict of the smart bomb era. Stealth fighters, like the F-117, flew undetected into Iraq, taking out key command and control centers, communication nodes, and air defense systems. Tomahawk cruise missiles, launched from warships hundreds of miles away, flew with incredible precision to strike their targets. The footage broadcasts on networks like CNN, showing the skies over Baghdad lit up with anti-aircraft fire and the crosshairs of precision-guided munitions, became iconic. The goal of the air campaign was simple: to dismantle Iraq's ability to fight. For 38 days, coalition aircraft flew over 100,000 sorties. They targeted everything from military leadership and communications to bridges, power plants, and weapons facilities. The Iraqi Air Force was either destroyed on the ground or effectively neutralized, giving the coalition complete and total air supremacy. Saddam's response was to try and widen the conflict. He launched Scud missiles at Israel, hoping to draw them into the war and break the coalition, which included several Arab nations. It was a dangerous gamble, but Israeli restraint and the deployment of American Patriot missile batteries to intercept the Scuds prevented this from happening. He also initiated an environmental disaster, deliberately releasing millions of barrels of oil from Kuwaiti terminals into the Persian Gulf and setting hundreds of Kuwaiti oil wells on fire, creating an apocalyptic scene of smoke and flame. Despite these desperate acts, the Iraqi military was being systematically crushed from the air. By late February, they were battered, their supply lines were cut, and their morale was plummeting. The stage was set for the final phase of the liberation. On February 24, 1991, the ground war began. Coalition commanders, led by General Norman Schwarzkopf, executed a brilliant and daring plan. While a portion of the force pushed directly into Kuwait, the main thrust was a massive flanking maneuver, known as the left hook. Hundreds of thousands of troops and thousands of armored vehicles swung far out into the Iraqi desert, bypassing the main Iraqi defenses and attacking their forces from the rear and the side. The Iraqi army, which had prepared for a head-on assault, was completely caught by surprise. Their command structure, already crippled by the air war, fell apart. Soldiers began surrendering in droves, sometimes to journalists or unmanned drones. The feared Republican Guard divisions, Saddam's elite troops, put up some resistance, but were ultimately outmaneuvered and overwhelmed by the superior technology, training, and coordination of the coalition forces. The advance was astonishingly fast. Kuwait City was liberated in just a few days. The images of jubilant Kuwaitis celebrating in the streets, waving flags and embracing coalition soldiers, were a powerful testament to the mission's success. The scenes of destruction on the highway of death, a road leading out of Kuwait littered with a long convoy of destroyed Iraqi military vehicles, showed the devastating effectiveness of coalition air power. After exactly 100 hours of ground combat, President Bush declared a ceasefire. Kuwait was liberated. The Iraqi army was decisively defeated. The stated goals of the United Nations and the coalition had been achieved. The war was over. The aftermath of the Gulf War was profound. It solidified the United States' position as the world's sole superpower in the post-Cold War era. It demonstrated a new model of warfare, where technology and air power could achieve decisive results with relatively low coalition casualties. However, the decision to end the war without removing Saddam Hussein from power would have long-lasting consequences, setting the stage for another decade of sanctions, inspections, and eventually, the 2002 invasion of Iraq. The 1990-91 Gulf War was a pivotal moment in modern history, a story of aggression, international resolve, and a technological revolution in combat. It was a conflict that, in just a few short months, redrew the political and military landscape of the 21st century. Thanks for joining us here at American TimeVault. We hope this journey back to the Gulf War was insightful. If you found this video interesting, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next trip into the archives of history. We'll see you next time.